Liberal Viewer presents.
So the $662 billion National Defense Authorization Bill that funds the American military included an extra provision this year that codifies into federal law the power that former President George W. Bush just asserted after 9/11 to detain anyone indefinitely without trial based on just an accusation of terrorism, including U.S. citizens arrested on American soil. Yet I was able to find almost no coverage of this issue on Fox News, except for a brief reference in a few stories last week that mentioned the issue of military custody without ever mentioning the custody would last indefinitely without trial and applied to U.S. citizens arrested on American soil, as you can see, for example, in this clip.
Catherine, we're expecting fireworks today on the detainee matter. What's up?
Well, that's right. The Defense Authorization Act, in a nutshell, says that all terrorism suspects are supposed to go to military custody, but there is what's called a national security waiver the executive branch can use to send cases to federal courts. The administration has, the White House has promised to veto that, and the FBI director has expressed serious reservations as well.
So, again, the only part of this issue that Fox News reported was the minor fight between the Congress and the president about whether putting people accused of terrorism in military custody would be mandatory or optional, and later in the day, when the president's negotiators said some changes in the language making the military custody more of an option than a requirement meant the president would probably no longer veto the bill, Fox News failed to report that, even on their supposedly straightest news program special report that gave the same superficial coverage to the issue that evening, as you can see in this clip.
The House is waiting for a final vote on the defense authorization bill. President Obama has threatened to veto that bill over a requirement that terror suspects be turned over to military custody. FBI Director Robert Mueller told the Senate Judiciary Committee today that he cannot fully support the handling of terrorism suspects as laid out in that bill. Mueller said the lines of authority are not clear enough. Ranking Republican Jeff Sessions said the FBI can assist, but the terror suspects should not be treated like common criminals.
Now, not only did that supposedly straight news report fail to inform viewers of the breaking news that President Obama had basically withdrawn his veto threat against the bill earlier that day, but again, the worst part of the reporting was the way Fox News never really explained to its viewers that this law authorizes the U.S. government to detain anyone indefinitely without trial based on just an accusation of terrorism, including U.S. citizens arrested on American soil. To get that information, viewers would need a source like the news analysis program on MSNBC, The Rachel Maddow Show, broadcast the same evening as that superficial coverage from Fox News' special report, with Rachel Maddow devoting an entire segment to the real issue, explained right up front like this.
This year, the bill to fund the Defense Department also became the bill to require that people suspected of terrorism, potentially including American citizens captured on American soil, people suspected of terrorism be put into military custody, where they could be held indefinitely without trial. So here's your Pentagon budget, but we're going to go ahead and take the Sixth Amendment off your hands.
And that blunt presentation of how this bill would take away the Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial is so much more informative than the vague references to military custody in the Fox News stories, and the coverage on MSNBC went even further, bringing on the deputy legal director of the American Civil Liberties Union to explain that the changes the president's negotiators got in the bill didn't solve any of the civil liberties problems, as you can see here.
I think it was an awful bill before, and it's an awful bill now. It's a bill that would make permanent make permanent in American law this fixture of worldwide indefinite detention without charge or trial. It's a bill that would further militarize counterterrorism policy. It's a bill that would make it harder to close Guantanamo. It has all the problems that we identified earlier, and it's really quite astonishing and disappointing that President Obama is withdrawing his veto threat.
Now, as much as I hate to disagree with the analysis of the deputy legal director of the ACLU, I don't see how he can be astonished by President Obama's withdrawal of his veto threat because, as I reported in a video last spring, President Obama had already issued an executive order including indefinite detention without trial back then, so I was already disappointed with Barack Obama back then, not just for the loss of civil liberties, but because of the way giving up on our ideals also hurts national security, as Jamil Jaffer also explained back on the Rachel Maddow show in this clip.
The powers that we are claiming are not powers that other countries are very happy with. And ultimately, in order to have an effective counterterrorism policy, you need to have other countries that are willing to cooperate. And this theory that we have indefinite detention authority, the power to detain people picked up anywhere in the world without charge or trial until the end of hostilities, whatever that means, that's a power that many other countries are uncomfortable with, and that many people here in the United States are uncomfortable with. And even the Obama administration, we thought, was uncomfortable with it until today.
Now, if you're uncomfortable with giving someone the power to lock up people indefinitely without a trial, you can help out, not just by giving this video a thumbs up and adding it to your favorites, as I always appreciate, but also by going to the ACLU webpage at bit.ly/ACLUNDAA and asking President Obama to veto this bill, though at this point I think that veto is very unlikely and the issue will most likely end up in the courts, which is an even better reason to go to the ACLU website and lend your support to the civil libertarians most likely to challenge this law. But I want to know what you think. Will judges reject the government power to detain people indefinitely without trial that politicians keep proposing as a solution to terrorism? And regarding the political side of the issue, why don't politicians pay a political price when they give up our liberties in exchange for this kind of counterproductive attempt to increase security?
YouTube, you decide.